There's nothing concrete or set in stone when it comes to deloading. You really have to listen to your body and make the decisions that are best for you and for your training that will help you recover and take your training forward. Welcome to the Ironwood Gym. One of my recent videos, hopefully you guys got a chance to check it out, but I covered deload workouts or deload weeks and the reasons why you would need to deload, how you should deload, and things of that nature. One of the points that I really tried to hammer home or get across was if you're going to deload, then you need to deload. You shouldn't be picking and choosing, saying I'll deload this but not this, or increasing your intensity because you only need to back off on the volume. Your body interprets stress as stress. Okay, so if your body needs to deload, you can't effectively deload if you're increasing stress in another area. So if you actually need to deload and you need to reduce the stress that you're placing on your body, you need to deload everything, not just certain things. And you can't increase other things because when you do that, your body is actually interpreting that as stress. Your central nervous system is interpreting that as stress, and it's going to react accordingly. And you're not going to achieve the effects of an actual deload. So when you need to deload, you need to deload. One of the things that I realized after that video is that even though I explained things, there could be a lot lost in translation there. So I needed to give more specific examples. So that's what we're going to do today. But before we get into it, if you haven't done so, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, take a second to go ahead and click on that subscribe button. Like the video if you like what you've been seeing here. And also check out my Instagram page, Ironwood Strength, and the Facebook page, Ironwood Strength. Some of the things are the same between each page, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, but there are also things that I put on the Facebook page that aren't on the other pages, or that I put on Instagram that doesn't go on to YouTube or Facebook or any scenario there. So there are different things that pop up, so make sure you're checking all three of them out. All right, so this first workout we're going to look at was a squat workout. It's something I did actually fairly recently, just a couple weeks ago. And I had just finished a block of training. It was an accumulation block. So my intensity really wasn't that high, but I did need to back off to go into the next block. So I needed to take a deload. So this is what that looked like. Starting off that workout the week prior, the last week of loading, I had done a circuit to warm up. I went through it twice and it took me about 6 minutes to get it done. And that's pretty standard for pretty much all my workouts. And those circuits are their activation exercises, their exercises kind of movement prep to get me going for the main movement of the day, which in this case was a man array box squat, some ab work, some dynamic flexibility work, and I just go through it, not as fast, absolutely as fast as I can, but at a pretty good pace. So I don't do the circuit on the deload workout. What I do is I focus on things that I know are going to help me out, probably more health-wise. So I did more mobility work, and I also did some activation work. So those are things that I don't get enough of throughout my workouts. I have some pretty tight time restraints, so I want to focus on it on my deload week to make sure I'm still getting it in, even though I could probably use more of it than just that. The next thing, on that last week of training, I did man array box squat. So I actually rotate my exercises, kind of similar to West Side, even though I'm not always doing max effort work. So in this block, I had worked up the third week, I hit 75% for one set of 5. So coming out of that to deload, I need to back off some. So what I did is I did just an actual box squat, and I worked up to 60% for a set of 3. And the box, I don't compete anymore, and I don't have necessarily, that's kind of the goal of my training for squat. I'm going to train to improve my box squat, but I want to go back to the actual thing I'm trying to improve, which in this case is the box squat, to make sure that everything is carrying over to that. So everything I did in the previous block, safety squat bar, man array, whatever the low box squat, I want to bring that all to the 4th week where I'm deloading and I'm going to do what I'm actually trying to improve. So it all kind of sets into that, and then I'm actually getting a feel. So I'm not keeping that exercise out of my program. I'm constantly refreshing what I need to feel for that exercise. I worked up just like I normally would, but when I got to 60%, I did a set of 3, which is way under what I could do, and just shut it down there. The goal is not to have a super high intensity or max reps on that weight. It's just to get good clean reps and feel my technique out. So back to that week of loading, the next thing I did was pin good mornings. So I set the bar on the safety racks, did good mornings off of that for 3 heavy sets of 6. And the deload week, I just entirely cut that out. I didn't do it at all. Okay, I just moved on with the workout. Glute ham raises, I actually changed. I broke that rule of you don't change the exercise on a deload week. There is kind of a caveat to that, and that's what I'm showing here, is that I went to a more remedial exercise that still trained the same muscle groups and still trained the same action. So what I did was a seated single leg with a band, but leg curls. And my writing is not the best, and it's definitely not the best when I go to a grease sport or a dry erase sport. So I'm still training my hamstrings, and I'm still training my hamstrings through knee flexion. So it's the same type of movement, but it's much more remedial. It's a seated single leg band leg curl is way more remedial than a glute ham raise. So I'm probably not causing much of an overload by changing the exercise in this case. So in that, I did 2 sets of 15. Primary goal, get blood into my hamstrings and make each hamstring work independently versus being able to compensate if you have one that's weaker than the other on something like a double leg curl, or in this case, a glute ham raise. Next I had ab wheel. Same type of thing here. I did change the exercise, but I went to something that was easier, and I made sure I kept my everything well below maximal. So I was still backing off both intensity and volume. So I went to standing cable ab pull downs, and I did 2 sets of 15 there. But I did keep the weight down low, just made sure I was getting a good stretch when I came up with my abs, and then really focused on utilizing my abs when I crunched down. Didn't worry about the weight. And then reverse hypers, change the exercise here. This is actually more out of laziness on my part than needing to change the exercise, but I still changed it to something that was more simple. I went back extensions instead of reverse hypers and just did it body weight. I don't want to really load after, loading my squat on one day, loading my deadlift hard on the other day. My back and my spine have been pretty taxed for the past 3 weeks. Hitting reverse hypers each week. This week was actually 2 sets of 12. And so I went to back extensions, did 2 sets of 15, just body weight, which should back me off from any sort of overload. So, and then afterwards, if I had time, I don't remember if I did it this week, but I usually try to get some static stretching in, maybe some more mobility work. Things that I don't normally do that isn't really going to cause an overload, but it's things that can kind of help keep me healthy. So that's a lower body workout or a squat workout. Now let's take a look at an upper body workout. All right, so this workout was actually my primary bench day. It's been a while since I've done this. I think I did this maybe 4 or 5 months ago, but started out the same as that lower body workout. I started with the circuit, again, 4 to 5 exercises to get me going for the workout. That changed to, again, things that I need to do more of to keep my shoulders healthy. So scap work, rotator cuff work, and active flexibility. Okay, and I do active flexibility all the time, I just do a little bit more of it on my deload weeks, but I definitely could use more scap work. Rotator cuff work is something that I do a decent amount of. Again, I just add more in during a deload week, just really trying to hit things that I'm not always hitting. And again, it probably increased from about 6 minutes to about 10 minutes. So I want to spend some time on it and make sure I'm getting some good work on those areas. Now at this period of time, I was a little bit beat up. So I really changed some things that I wouldn't normally do. So I'm going to explain what I actually did and what I would normally do under normal circumstances. So bench press, I had just done a workout the previous week where I did 5 sets of 2 at 85%. So I did my warm-up sets, probably three or so warm-up sets, maybe 4 warm-up sets, and then I hit 85% and I did 5 sets of 2 there. Now, when I went to my deload week, what I actually did, my pecs are always an issue, and at this point in time, my left pec was hurting pretty good. So I just did the bar, and I did it for a set of 50. And this is something that I discovered years ago, kind of helps my pecs feel a lot better. Usually I'll do probably 2 sets, usually 2 sets of 50, just to get blood flow. And I'll rotate my grips throughout the set. So I'll do like 30 reps with the regular grip, rack it, immediately take it back out, do another 20 or so reps with a medium grip, rack it, immediately take it back out, and finish with a close grip. But I'm just trying to get blood flow into my pecs, and it does seem to help me out. So that's what I actually did on this day. But under normal circumstances, I would work up. Now, if I had just worked up to 85%, I'm not feeling horribly beat up, feeling overall pretty good. I'm not super drained, but I do need a deload. In that case, I would work up to 70%, but I would just do it for a single. So I'd almost just work up like I'm going to max out, but when I get to 70%, I'm just going to shut it down. Okay. If I'm a little bit more worn down, maybe a little bit beat up, but again, I need the deload, but it's a little bit more worn down than usual. In that case, I would work up to 60%, and I would do it for a triple. Again, shut it down at that point, don't do any more, and then continue on with the workout. So those are 2 different options. This would be like option A, this is what I would prefer to do, and this would be option B. The whole goal, technique of the bench press, and to feel some weight and get good, clean, crisp reps in. Not trying to struggle, I want good, solid, clean reps. For the reverse grip 2-board press is what I did second the prior week. And this is actually something I got from an article that Mark Keys wrote probably almost 10 years ago now, but it was on Elite FTS. And I got the percentages myself. The idea from the workout came from his article. But I worked up 85%, or I didn't work up, I went straight to that weight. Did 85% of my reverse grip 2-board press max for 9. So you can see I'm probably a little bit stronger than what I thought. 92%, I did it for 4, 72% for 12, and 50% for 23. All of those sets were almost a failure. Okay, so basically I tried to rack the bar without failing when I didn't think I could do another rep. So that is very fatiguing, but again, I stayed away from failure. Well, when I go to my deload week, what I actually do is I just cut that whole exercise out. Don't need to do it. I've already got bench press work in here as my first exercise. Let's move on to the assistance work. So on this day, okay, so this would be 1 or 2, number 3 I cut out. So number 3 now is going to be tricep work. Okay, now I cut out the JM press. I didn't want to do more pressing type of work. So for the JM press, what I did is I did band pushdowns. And I know I've talked about, and I've explained it, I don't like to do new exercises. However, I do band pushdowns all the time. So this was my Wednesday workout. On Sundays, pretty much every single Sunday, I'm doing band push downs. And it ranges anywhere from 10 to 15 reps per set, all the way up to 100 reps per set. And sometimes that's in the same workout. So band push downs, adding in band push downs on this day is still getting me a deload because I'm only doing 3 sets of 20. It's just about getting blood flow into my elbows and getting some tricep work in. So that's what I did in place of that. Then I went to dumbbell curls. I did 2 sets of 15. Again, Sunday I do biceps. I don't like doing bicep work. I just do it to keep my elbows healthy and to keep, kind of balance out the strength between my triceps and my biceps. So, which in turn helps keep my elbows healthy. So I always do bicep work on Sundays. Sundays is kind of a little bit more of a bodybuilding influence. So I'm already doing it. I just moved it. I'm doing it on both days now instead of one day. And then for number 5, for my rows, what I actually did is I did face pulls. And this is a change in exercise. I don't do face pulls all the time, even though they are a good exercise. The issue with the rows is that my elbow had been bothering me quite a bit. In fact, there were certain things I couldn't even do, but to pull that bar was bothering my elbow. So I still wanted to get some upper back work in. Face pulls is not a direct, like it's not exactly the same, but I'm still getting upper back work. And it's not a super intensive exercise that I'm creating a whole new overload with. It's pretty simple. I kept it light, did 2 sets of 15, just trying to work that range of motion and get some work in with my upper back. So, and then at the end, if I had time, I would do some flexibility work, stretch my pecs, stretch my lats, maybe do some stretches for my forearms to help out with my elbow. But that's it. That's basically how my upper body deload work week went at this point in time. So now we're going to take a look at some more specific examples of dynamic effort work and how you would deload that. All right, so dynamic effort work kind of creates some confusion when it comes to a deload because you're sort of, depending upon what phase of dynamic effort work you're doing, your intensity is already decreased. So your intensity is already down. What do? Do you just maintain your dynamic effort work, or do you reduce your intensity even more, or do you cut your volume down, or how much should you cut your volume down? And I see this creates a lot of confusion for a lot of people. So these are things that I've done, and these are, I think, good examples of how you should deload when it comes to dynamic effort work. And there are different options here. There's nothing concrete or set in stone when it comes to deloading. You really have to listen to your body and make the decisions that are best for you and for your training that will help you recover and take your training forward versus holding it back or going backwards even. So this first example was a box squat. So I did a 3-week wave dynamic effort box squat. This is your standard, if you follow Westside Barbell, it's your standard strength speed phase. For me, I just call it a regular band phase. And dynamic effort box squat, I was using light bands on the bar. I did a 3-week wave. So over 3 weeks, I went from 12 sets of 2 to 10 sets of 2 down to 8 sets of 2. At the same time, my intensity increased. So the first week was 45% bar weight and 20% of band tension. So my band tension came up to 20%. So that gave me a total of 65%. I'm not going to get too much into that, but that's just, the band stayed constant throughout the entire 3 weeks. I increased my intensity each week, 45, 50, 55% on week 3. So for my deload, when I got to the 4th week, instead of trying to manipulate anything too much there, I just cut out the bands entirely. So what I did was, I went 5 sets of 2. I don't want high volume, okay? And cutting out the bands, I went to 50% bar weight, okay? And I could have even done 60% because 55 and 20 is 75%. That's what I ended up with on week 3. Even if I did 60%, that's still a 15% reduction. It just happens that week I decided to go 50% and I did 5 sets of 2 there. Focused on moving the bar fast, focused on getting used to not having bands on the bar. You can't do all your training with bands, okay? If you're gonna test your lifts or you're gonna compete with straight weight, you need to have that in your training at certain points in time. A deload week is a great way to do it because getting rid of the bands gets rid of that added eccentric stress and allows you to focus on technique and stability with just straight weight, the way you're gonna have to do it whenever you're testing those lifts out. So that was the box squat workout. The bench press workout, I did it a little bit different. So I was using 2 chains each week of the deload. And again, I did the same type of wave. I just did triples instead of doubles. 40% week 1, 45, 50%. The chains added 24% to the bar. So for my deload week, I actually backed all the way up to 40%. And you can do this with bands too. I'll explain that here in just a second. And I did 6 sets of 3. Actually, no, I didn't. I did 5. Sorry. I did 5 sets of 3 at the 40%. But instead of using 2 chains or going all the way down to straight weight, I went to 1 chain. So my accommodating resistance now was 12% instead of 24%. A little bit on the low side. I generally don't think anyone should have less than 15% accommodating resistance pretty much ever. Not that, I guess you could find a reason to do it, but most of the time you need at least 15% or you're not going to notice a big difference. But anyway, that allowed me to back off both the accommodating resistance and the bar weight. And I did 5 sets of 3 there, so I cut my volume down pretty considerably. If you're using bands, a same type of example, let's say you used a Monster Mini, and you can do it with squat as well. Let's say you used a Monster Mini for your accommodating resistance. On the week 4 for the deload, if you still want to keep those bands in there, which sometimes you might want to do, just drop down a band. Instead of using a Monster Mini, drop it down to just a mini band. And then go back to your week 1 weight, your bar weight. So 40%, instead of having a Monster Mini, you're going to have a mini band. So it's going to feel a lot lighter. It's a good opportunity to focus on that bar speed and get your speed back after that heavy band training, which is likely slowing you down. So if you're doing that with a squat, let's say you're squatting with average bands. Some companies make those, they're green, they're the thicker one. They're not super thick, but they're probably about maybe 2 inches thick. Elite FTS makes them, they're the silver bands. Sorinex and Rogue, I believe. I'm not sure what Rogue is, but Sorinex uses the green. So I say you're using that for the 3 weeks. When you go to week 4, drop back to your week 1% and then drop down to a light band, which is either the purple band or the orange band. So you're getting both a reduction in band tension and a reduction in bar weight. It's a very good way to deload coming off dynamic effort work. So my third example here is this is actually the one I just did. So I just came off this cycle. Dynamic effort bench, I had a mini band plus 2 chains on the bar. So I did 5 sets of 3. My bar weight was 35, 40, and 45% over the 3 weeks. My accommodating resistance, the mini band plus the chains, came out to 51%. So when I got to my deload week, beat up. I was beat up at that point. My pec was really bothering me and had some hand issues, a couple different injuries that I had throughout this that cycle. So I didn't want to do anything like that. I didn't want to bench press at all, okay? So I backed off, completely got rid of bench press, so I'm not using bands, I'm not using chains, anything like that, and I went dumbbell bench. And what I did was I just wanted to get a lot of blood flow, okay? That's all I wanted to do was create blood flow in my shoulders, create blood flow in my pecs to get those things healing back up. And I did 3 sets of 20. Now, the 3 sets of 20 is not a 20 rep max. All right, I'm not going balls to the wall doing dumbbell bench. It is 3 sets of 20 that I can recover from after each set, and that I'm going to get good reps on all the way through each set. So there should never a question of whether I could get 20 reps on any of those sets. I started pretty light. I worked up each set. Again, by the time I got to that third set, there was still no question I was going to get all 20 reps. Even though I was starting to feel that burn, I was still going to get all my 20 reps and not have any trouble doing it. But by doing that, like I've already stated, I was creating blood flow, which is what I needed in my pecs for that healing to take place and hopefully be better for this next workout coming up. You can also do this on if you train using max effort work, you can do it on a max effort day. Instead of working up to a single or working up to a set percent for the deload, you would just grab the dumbbells, go to dumbbell bench, and do 3 sets of 20, 3 sets of 15. Just make sure you're nowhere near failure. You're getting good reps in and creating blood flow. If you want to do that on a lower body workout like a squat day, jump on the belt squat. I hate to say leg press, but if that's what you got, that's what you got. But definitely a belt squat or maybe even a hack squat would be a good replacement just to get blood flow to those hips, to the legs, to the hamstrings, and it keeps you squatting, but you're not really testing yourself. It is a deload. You're still backing off. So that's how I would do dynamic effort deloads. All the assistance work that comes after that is the same stuff I've already explained. Now I want to hit one more point or a couple more points on deloads before we shut this down. Deloading and backing off are two different things. You can back off at any point in time, okay? And some people will call that a deload, like a partial deload. It's not really, because let's say my shoulder's bothering me and I know I need to back off on my upper body. I'm still going to keep training my squat hard. I'm still going to keep training my deadlift hard, but I'm going to back off on my bench. Maybe it's a workout, maybe it's for a full week, and I may still train all my assistance work hard. Okay, so I'm not completely deloading. I'm just backing off certain things. Perfectly acceptable, and you need to do that at times. Again, listen to your body. There's also a group of people, and I would halfway say that I'm in this group, but I love the process so much. Even a deload workout, even though I don't necessarily like it, is part of the process. So, but the meatheads, just the straight meatheads, just like to come in and pound iron. They do not like to deload. They would rather take a week off than come into the gym and do light work. I get it, but it's not the best way to deload, but if that's the only thing you can wrap your mind around is, hey, I'm just going to get out of the gym entirely, you are still creating a deload by doing that. I'm not going to advise that. I'm just saying sometimes that's what people think they need, and maybe if they think it that strong, maybe that's better for them than coming in to the gym and doing tedious work, or all of a sudden that deload turning into a max out session, because that's just how their mind is wired, and if they're in the gym, they're going to go. So in that case, maybe it is better that they just stay out of the gym for a week. So those are two different things that I wanted to hit on: backing off and just getting out of the gym. They do have an effect. So if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. Again, listen to your body. You probably know what's best, versus just reading out of the text and saying, well, this is what, or saying Ironwood strength, David Adamson said to do this, so that's what I have to do. Maybe that's not what you need. If your workouts are at a different level than this, whether they're higher volume or lower volume, or higher intensity or lower intensity, you might need something different, and that's okay. Deloads are not set in stone. I've said this before. You have to base your deload off of what you need and off of the workouts that you've been doing. These are just examples that I'm trying to get my point across of how a deload should be set up, but you're going to end up setting it up what you need for you, all right? What you need for your body, what you need for the program or the system of training that you've been following. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Again, subscribe to the channel, check out the Instagram channel, check out the Facebook page, and until next time, always be in the pursuit of strength.